Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Quilt Stars. I am so excited to be coming to you from Quilt City, USA, to be talking with my friend, the one and only amazing Karen Kay Buckley. Karen, I'm so excited to be here with you at your home. How are you?
I'm good, Liz. How are you?
Oh, I'm wonderful. It looks like it's a beautiful day there.
It is beautiful. A little warm, but it's beautiful.
Well, wonderful. Can you show us a little bit of your space?
I would absolutely love to share my space with you. So we are already at the top of the steps, so we didn't have to kind of do a jerky movement up and down, but I want to show you. And Joe, my husband, is doing the camera work, so thank you, Joe. But on the wall, coming up the steps to my studio, I have framed every quilt that I have ever had on the cover of a magazine. I used to have all the magazines tossed on a shelf in a cabinet, and then I thought one day, you know what? I need to be able to enjoy this. And so I pulled them out and actually had them all framed. And look, Liz, 2 American Quilter covers, just saying.
Yes, just saying. What a cool inspiration for you when you're walking up the steps to your studio to see all those frames. That's a great idea.
And it reminds me of my journey, which is fantastic.
Of course.
And you'll see a little sign over here that says the Country Quilt Shop. I always say 100 years ago because it was a very long time ago. I owned a quilt shop, so that's one of my mementos I kept from the shop. Then I have a couple collectibles here before you walk in the door, an old sewing machine, etc. And then on the wall right before you walk into my room, I framed all the covers to the books I've done. AQS, 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 just saying. It was a while ago, but it was an awesome experience. Okay, let's step into the studio. First thing you're going to see is I have a funny feeling not in every quilter's studio. Bug collection. I love insects. If I saw one of these out in the wild, I'm not kidding you, I'd probably pee my pants, but you know, or if they were in my house, but I like looking at them this way. I am inspired by the shapes, the colors, pretty much all the things that are in my room have an inspiration for me. And even though I don't do realistic bugs necessarily, I often incorporate insects into my work.
That is so cool and unique. And we're looking at real bugs that used to be alive. Right?
That's correct, behind glass. That's the way I like them, behind glass.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Behind glass. They're beautiful. I can see how those would be an inspiration for you.
And then all of these white drawers are filled with quilts. And so that's where I store my quilts. So when I'm ready to go do a lecture or go to a guild, I can open up the drawers and pull out what I need. At the top, I have some more collectible things. I've been to Mexico several times, and I'm very inspired by their colors. I'm very inspired by the art. And all of these pieces are hand painted, tiny, tedious little work. My favorite piece of art, I think my favorite that I own, I bought this piece in Mexico, and it is called yarn art. And if Joe can zoom in just a little bit so you can see it a little closer, it's fascinating to me. I got the history of this, and they start with a piece of wood and hot wax. And then just taking yarn off of the skein, they create these designs, and it is here. And you cannot find the stops and starts, but it sticks to this hot wax. I was fascinated by this art.
Yeah, you really can't see the stops and starts. I wouldn't have known it was yarn until you said that. That's really cool.
It's so cool.
You should try it sometime and then show us how it comes out.
Yeah, there you go. In my spare time.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're coming around the wall. This is not my quilt, but it's hanging on the wall in my studio, and I want to give credit. I saw this artist's work. Her name is Maria Schell, and when I saw her work, I then contacted her and said, do you sell any of your pieces? Because I just think it's fascinating. And so it has a place of honor in on the wall in my studio.
Yeah, and a shout out to Maria Schell because she enters our contest. She's taught for us, and I'm very familiar with. She's another friend of AQS.
Yeah, very good. And then we're going to turn around, and you'll see my Bernina sewing machines. I have 2 machines back to back. I like having them back to back. It gives me extra table space, so when I'm working on a quilt, I can kind of, push things in the middle there. I like that. And then I have a big white table space. I like a white surface when I'm working. And I probably could do an ad for IKEA because I have a whole lot of their stuff in my room. So an expensive table, seriously, and it's a great work surface. What I have on the table right now, I'm going to come back to. So we're just going to skip past that for a minute and we'll come back to it. And then we'll see my design wall. And on this design wall, I can just stick small pieces that will stick onto this batting, or I can pin things in. Look, I have a little bug quilt. I did not do that.
Oh.
Ellen and Eddie came to our guild to do a workshop, and I took the workshop because her techniques were very different than what I do. And she had this little bug quilt for sale. I had to have it.
Well, of course. It goes along well with the others on the wall.
And then this little piece is kind of special to me. I did the hand applique, and Renee Haddadine did the quilting on this. And Renee and I, prior to this little piece, had worked together on some big quilts. Two of them, one hand applique and one machine. And they won Best of Show at Paducah. And so those quilts live in the museum. And I said, when we did this project, it was done as a fundraiser for Alzheimer's research, which was very near to both Renee and myself. And so I thought, wouldn't it be nice if I could own this little piece? And so I mentioned it to Joe, who of course made sure I ended up getting this. And the money went to Alzheimer's research. So it was a win-win, really.
That's wonderful. That's definitely a win-win. And good job, Joe. Very good husbanding. That's very good. And do you happen to know how big those circles are? Because I know our viewers are going to wonder. They look teeny tiny.
I'll put my finger up beside so you can see they're pretty small.
Oh my gosh. Well, but you are the queen of perfect circles. We all know that. And we all use those. So that's wonderful.
Thank you, Liz. I'll take it. I like a good circle, that's for sure. And then when I am working on projects, sometimes I hit a spot where my design wall is empty just because the part of the process, I don't have anything up there right now. So when that happens, which is the case right now, I pull out one of my old quilts, and this is called Magical Medallions, and I will put that up on the design wall just to enjoy it for a little while. Otherwise the board would be empty. So now I have some visual eye candy while I'm up here working on something else.
That's a great idea and a beautiful, beautiful, stunning quilt. We are seeing more and more medallion quilts like that now too. It's making a really big comeback.
Yeah, I love medallion style quilts. And then Joe walked over to show you, this is sort of an in-process project I'm working on. So you see all of these pieces, and I don't know if he can step just a tad bit closer, but they're all pinned up onto this paper pattern.
Yes, I can see.
I'm going to kind of back you up over to my white table where I do a lot of this work, just to kind of explain a little bit about this process and what I'm doing on this quilt that I'm currently working on. So for me, the first step is I always design with a paper and pencil. And I find that I'm old school in that respect, but I like to erase. If I don't like it, I can erase it, I can redo. It makes it easy for me. And then when I'm finished designing, I take my patterns to my local Staples. And they know me well. We all know each other by first name. I know them, they know me. I'm in and out there a good bit. But they can do the big blueprint copy size. And I have a copy made so that I keep my original drawing, and then I have another one to actually cut up and use for other steps. So I decided to work on black fabric for this project, which I have done many times with dark fabrics in my background. And you'll see there's some white lines on here. So I have to get the placement for my applique shapes onto this fabric. So I grabbed some scraps here so I could show you my process. It's really easy. I have my black fabric, obviously much bigger than this on the real project, and I like to secure it to my table. And then I will position accurately, when I'm on the real project, my paper pattern over top of that. And I tape it down so it won't move. And then I have these transfer papers. And that's basically on the inside, the white part. It's like a chalk. It's like a loose chalk. And it's not chalky that it comes off in your fingers, but it's that concept. And then I place this underneath my paper pattern. Now, again, this would not be moved around. It would be positioned in place.
Sure.
Then I lay this down, and I have what I call the perfect tracer. And I take this, and I'm just going to trace a little section so you can see the concept. But I would take my marker and just drag it over top. And I don't have to push very hard, but I can drag it over top of all of these lines. And I mean, this would take me hours on a big quilt to do this. But then I have all my placement lines.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. That's a really good technique.
And the white, it either washes out, brushes off. I've used a microfiber dust cloth. I mean, all sorts of easy things to kind of remove. And I do have these transfer papers. I'll say this quickly, reusable over and over and over and over and over again. So once you have the papers, you just keep reusing them. And the transfer paper and the tracer I sell on my website because it's something I taught in a lot of, my classes. The other thing you're
what's your website, real quick, for those who want to check that out?
It's under www.karenkaybuckley.com.
Perfect.
I'm not very hard to find. And then another part of the step is I have to make a template. And this is a heat resistant plastic for every shape. Not every, I should take that back. Not the circles, not the ovals. I'll talk about that later. But I cut, so I have 2 pairs of my Karen Kay Buckley Perfect Scissors on the table because these get used for this process. These cut paper, they cut plastic, they cut fusible fabrics. I mean, all sorts of good stuff. So I call them the multi-purpose scissors. So the pink are 7.5 and the orange ones are 5-inch. I do a technique where once these templates are made, I iron under all of my edges. It's called a prepared edge technique. And then they get pinned up onto that wall where Joe showed you all the pieces that were pinned up on there, because I like to audition everything to make sure I like it in that particular location. Because one of the things most appliqueurs will all tell you, if we find we applique a piece down and then we're standing back and we're going, I don't know, once it's appliqued down, you're thinking, well, it doesn't look that bad. But if you haven't put it down yet, you're more likely to go, oh, I'm not sure about that. So let me just double check another color to make sure if I like it or not.
Sure.
I audition every piece before I ever start to stitch. Okay?
That's a really good idea because I know that it's hard once you put all that work in and it's ready and you look at it and you go, oh no, I wish it was a different color. It would be the worst feeling to try to pull all that out. So yes, that's a good tip for those of you at home.
Yeah, it's not fun to rip. I mean, all of us that sew know how to do it, but I will say this. Taking something off by hand, if you hand applique, which I do a lot of, is not too bad. But I'm telling you right now, if you have it down and you've machined applique, you're going to pretty much like it where it is because it's really challenging to take machine applique stitches out because of the tightness of the stitch that we use. But so Joe moved over here where I'm sitting on the sofa behind my white table. I sit to do my hand applique. And I want to show you 2 things while I'm over here, please. First, I have my light that I pull down, and it has a big round bulb in it, so it throws off a lot of light. It's also a magnifier, so if I needed to, I can pull it down to look through the magnification for certain things. And I really love working with this light, and I can just sort of, up and down and move it to wherever I want it. But I'd like to just do a public service announcement, please.
Go for it.
I have one of these in my house also because sometimes I'll sit to do binding on quilts in there, etc. And I did not have the light covered. And the light inside, we have a skylight above it. The sun came down, went through this light, and burned 3 holes in my sofa.
Oh my gosh, because it's a magnifying glass.
Yeah, and if it had been a flammable fabric, the whole house could have burned down.
Wow, we are so grateful that it didn't. That's a good thing for people to know.
Yeah, so I have a cover. Liz, don't ever forget to put the cover on the light before you push it out of the way. So you don't have to worry about burning your house down or burning your sofa. over here beside me on the sofa, and this is here all the time. I have more than one bag, but these are another one of my products. It's called the Karen Kay Buckley Perfect Thread Bag. And the idea, when I first started hand appliquing, all of my threads were in a giant Ziploc bag. They all get twisted. You can't find the color you want. So these bags are designed with a zipper and a strip of ultra suede. And the concept is you want to take, when you first set up your bag, you take a needle and thread a single strand from the spool, bring it through the ultra suede, and then when you're ready to applique, you just pull off the amount that you want, which to me is about 18 inches. And then I just grab my scissors, leave a tail, so you have something to grab onto the next time, cut, and I have the thread that I need. But because these sections are a clear vinyl, I can see visually, I have all the colors right here in front of me. So then I can just reach over and pull off as much thread as I want for each project.
Absolutely. I had to tell you, when you were showing me that and I saw the little threads poking out that you could pull from, my jaw actually dropped. Like, what a great thing that we all need. And you just saw the need for it and created it. I think my husband is going to have to take a look at that, because he's been doing a lot of hand sewing patches on a jacket and stuff like that. And there's just thread all over our living room right now. So
it's perfect. I mean, excellent. And they're on my website as well if you're interested. But last thing kind of related to what we're talking about here. This is my pattern that the second copy that I had made, so I can cut it up. So I can transfer. I have this little board that I created that I can pin into. I also did it with batting that I could, if it's small pieces, just they'll stick on there. But when there's too many pieces, I like the paper pattern behind here. And I'll see if I can walk you over without jumping around too much. And then these pieces are going to continue right around here on this design where I'm currently working. But by pinning them on this, I don't accidentally get anything in the wrong place.
absolutely. That's a really good tool to have, especially when you're moving it from one place to another, if you need to work in a space and then take it to the larger quilt.
And this was so cheap. I mean, it's just a piece of styrofoam insulation board with a piece of batting wrapped around it, and I'm all good to go.
Perfect. That's so easy. You can make that at home.
Exactly. And then we're going to come back around this side of the studio. One weekend when I was out teaching, I came home and my husband had gone to an auction. He found out that there was an engineering business. They were going out of business, closing, and they were selling this drafting table. Score! And then one weekend, Liz, I was gone and I came home and Joe said to me, I might have bought something while you were gone. And I'm like, oh, now what? He said, I bought an old wooden phone booth. And I'm like, what? What are you going to do with it? I said, where are you going to put it? And he said, I don't really know what I'm going to do with it. So my girlfriends came over. He stuck it in the garage. My girlfriends came over a week later and they're like, what's with the phone booth? And I said, that's where Joe changes into his Superman outfit.
Oh, well, of course, Joe, you have to have a spot for that.
His antique phone booth. I thought it was hysterical. You never know what you're going to come home with, but usually it's something good. And then around the corner, I have a lot of my books that I've collected. And a few collectibles in this cabinet here. A couple more pieces that I got in Mexico for inspiration. And then I do have a desk area. I find that I don't actually have a Wi-Fi run out here. I did it on purpose. I said a no phone line. And I know it would drive a lot of people crazy, but when I finally get into my studio, quite honestly, I like uninterrupted time.
Sure.
And so that's my choice to not have that done. Because the builder said, I'm going to run it anyway. I said, I'll fire you. I was just, he knew me if I wasn't going to do it, but I'm like, don't do it. I just don't want it out here. Behind this door, I have actually a small but full bathroom, because this space at one time was Joe's man cave, and then Joe and I swapped spaces. But on the door, I have these are two older AQS calendars, and this is Fiesta Mexico that Renee Haddadine and I did, and it won Best of Show in 2013. So the following year it was out on the calendar, and in 2015, Majestic Mosaic was machine applique, and that one. But the reason I wanted to mention this, because every time I put these calendars up and just leave them open to those pictures,
But our dear friend Margaret, I just loved her dearly. I gave her, every time I had a quilt on a magazine, you know, whatever, or in a calendar, I would give her a copy. So when I went over to Margaret's one time, I had given her one of these calendars, and the next month after mine, my picture of the quilt, my quilt and Renee's was still up. And I'm like, how did she do that? Like, it still had this quilt, but it had a different month under here. And I said, Margaret, well, I'm like, she said, well, I didn't need to see anybody else's quilt, so I just cut theirs off.
Bless her heart. Well, you know what? That's a tribute to you. She loves you, and she wanted to put that up.
I couldn't stop laughing. Every time I look at the calendars, that's all I remember. There's Margaret cutting them up. Okay, so
I recognize both of those quilts, and I've had many calendars up on my wall, so it's always fun to see the different quilts that are in those. And anybody who's interested in those can get the quilt art calendars on shopaqs.com. So you too can cut out Karen Kay Buckley's quilt and paste it over here.
And then all my small pieces of fabric are kind of in this next area. And they're in boxes that I paid seriously very little for. I got them at like on sale outside of a Michael's or something, and then put all my scraps in there. And then coming across, I have I have a little collection of featherweight machines. And so I find, and each one is a different color. And then I have a green one, a purple one, a red one, and a regular black. But I do actually use them, because when I bought the first one, Joe said, I didn't know you were going to use. I said, yes, I'm going to use them. So when I'm piecing, just straight seams, I love working on the featherweights, just for fun. Then you'll see some of my fabric collection back here. This is just the corner.
I always love seeing everyone's fabric collections, because it's just like an explosion of rainbow color. It's so beautiful to look at.
And I've been quilting for 40 years, just so you understand. I've been collecting fabric for 40 years. So I have a large fabric library. But this stack that's on here, this is something that you don't need, but it works for me. This is a baker's tray. So these trays slide in and out. And what I do is, whatever my current quilt is, the big project I'm working on, all those fabrics stay on this tray until that quilt is finished. So I do not accidentally chop it up for something else and then find I needed another piece of it.
That is very smart, because I know it's really hard to, keep exactly what you need with you, especially when you've got all kinds of small pieces cut up and, the leftovers remaining. And then you can take it with you and not have fabric lying all over like I do when I make something.
And I can just roll it out to the other part of the room when I need it, which makes it excellent. Okay, then you're going to see the wall of fabric. This is behind my design wall. And did I mention I've been collecting fabric for 40 years?
Karen, that's exquisite. What an amazing different array of colors and I'm sure different types of fabric for you to choose from. That's absolutely beautiful. I would put pictures of that on my wall.
I said if I was ever having a bad day, I'd just come in here and lay on the floor and look at my fabric, and I just feel better already.
Of course. Yeah, I would too.
In defense of my collection, I want to say this. I read an article, and the article said, if it's organized, it's not hoarding.
I think that's great advice.
Okay, we're going to walk over to another little section. And I've been collecting ribbons for 40 years too. Maybe not.
Wow. I see some dogwoods there.
Yes, there are definitely some dogwoods here.
Oh, what a fun collection. And to have that up there and walk by and see those, oh my gosh, the best of show crystal. How exciting.
My crystal vase is set out all the time on top of a box that underneath it has batting stored inside of it. And it's on wheels. I had a friend make that for me, which was really nice piece to have. He made it so it would fit back in that section of the wall that already existed. Then we're going to come over to, before we exactly on the cutting table, let's look down here, because this to me is maybe a good tip that other people will find helpful. I was always trying to find a good way to store my rulers, and I wasn't a fan of putting them on a hook because I thought surely the ruler I need will be at the back of the hook thing. I wanted to be able to grab them. So what I have are their file folders that you just buy at the office supply store. And I found clear plastic ones. I've seen them in metal and different colors. But then my cutting table is right here. So I can just reach down and grab whichever one I need and just pop it right out of there and then put it back when I'm finished.
Oh yeah, thank you for showing us. That's a great tip because sometimes it's really hard to figure out how to store all those irregularly shaped templates and not have them just in a pile on your cutting table. So that's a really good use of, creative way to use the office supplies. And at Staples, they all know you.
Trust me, Bobby, I know them all because so we all know each other, which is nice. That's part of the benefit of living in a small town.
Absolutely.
Okay, on this, I was actually getting ready to square up a block, so I thought I would leave this here so you could see this. In this box is the Karen Kay Buckley's Perfect Adjustable Square, and I know AQS has these in their catalog.
Yes.
And
do you mind if I pause just for a second to say that on our website, for anyone who's interested, shopaqs.com, we have a lot of your perfect scissors, several of your templates, perfect circles, perfect stems. So anyone who's an AQS member can get 20% off of all of that. If you're feeling inspired, like I am, by what Karen's showing us, you can try that stuff at home as well.
Thank you for saying, and I love that they like my products that much to sell them. So it means a lot to me. Okay, so on the square, this is kind of cool because over the years, and I worked with an engineer to design this. I was looking for something that I could take apart and put back together, store it in a box, but then build it to different sizes. So this I can build, and I don't know, it's clear plastic, so I don't know how well it's going to show, but I can build this, and they're like puzzle pieces. So they snap together and come apart.
Oh yeah,
and they're four corners, but then I can build it to whatever size I want. And on the outside, I can build it up to a 26-inch square, and it doesn't fall apart once you snap it together. But I have, just so you could see the process a little better, I have the 3-inch ruler. Now these are not interchangeable, they're two totally different things, but I kind of think of this as the traveling ruler, and it's the exact same concept. These pieces, I tell people, tear them apart. Don't bend them, they get stuck. You can get them apart then, but it's hard. So you just tear them. So these are in 6-inch increments. So for example, let's say that I was taking a class and the instructor said, you need a 3x6 ruler. I can snap this together, put the end cap on, and then I can have that for class. It goes up to 24 inches and all the pieces snap apart and go together in these nice little pouches that come with them to store them.
How cool. And the fact that they're interchangeable means that you can use one set for just a wealth of different projects.
You cannot interchange this with the square.
Oh, but I mean with each other, the way you can,
yes,
you can combine them with one another.
Yes. And then some of my more Karen Kay Buckley scissors, because hello, I love the scissors. That's why I designed them. But the 7.5-inch and the 6-inch blue have the serrated blade, and I'm often doing cutting and trimming things over here. So I have scissors out in this drawer.
I have to tell you, often when we have a show and we have a teacher who maybe forgot a pair of scissors or needs an extra one for class, she always says, you have Karen scissors, right, in the booth? Because I need Karen scissors. They are beloved by so many around the quilting world.
I love to hear that. And then this chair right here, I actually sit in a lot. This is where I do all of my prepared edge. It's an ironing process. And I have I actually spent a little extra money for a really, really comfortable chair so that I could sit here. In all honesty, I'll sit here for hours ironing edges. And then I'll take a break and go sew some. So I always iron in the order I'm going to actually sew the pieces. So I can take a break and go stitch some for a little while. And when I'm over here, I had somebody made me, I love this, Kelly McCrory made me this little holder for over my mug that I have all my scissors over here stored. Because I do a lot of scissors cutting at this step. And I mentioned earlier, Liz, that I make templates for every shape. The shape that the project I'm currently working on, there are probably 900 templates that I have to make.
Oh my gosh.
I know it's a lot, but I love it all. So that doesn't faze me, but I don't have to make templates for the circles, the leaves, the ovals. I would say the smaller leaves, because that's what's in this pack. And so these I always have over around this area. And just for, the sake of time and what we're doing here, if anybody's interested in knowing more about this process, I have free tutorials on my website of how I use these, so they can see every step of it to understand the process. It's actually very, very easy.
Oh, that's great to know. So if you pick up some of those on Shop AQS, then you can go watch the tutorial on Karen's website and work on your projects at home. Perfect.
And then we're coming around the corner, and the last thing that sits right inside the door, and they were behind us when I came in, are the 2 chairs. And I know this sounds funny, Liz, but one of the things we talked about, it wasn't the money. Don't think we didn't appreciate it. And the crystal vases, we appreciated, but we really wanted the chairs.
The chairs are so special, and they're one of a kind, and it's just so good to see them treasured in your studio space, and inspiring, I'm sure, to walk by them and see, hey, I've made a couple really, really great quilts. More than a couple, I know is right. And so I'm sure it spurs you on to make something else great.
Well, I have to be honest with you. I'm always kind of shocked that it happened. And it meant a lot to me. It still does. I never took any of it for granted. Not one ribbon, not one thing. I just think what an honor it's been to be recognized. And it truly means a lot.
Well, and for you, I mean, to know that you've made such incredible quilts and so many award-winning quilts, and not to mention the way that you've changed the quilting education scene with your different products, and the way that you can explain things to people, and to know that you're still humble enough to feel, honored and never take that for granted. That's really, truly inspiring to me, and I know a lot of other people as well.
I said when Quilters Newsletter magazine would put one of my quilts on the cover, every time I would see one, I would cry, because I kept thinking, I can't believe they picked another one of my quilts. And they said, everybody reacts like that. And I said, I still am dumbfounded to this day, but I'm truly honored, because it's a big deal.
Well, we're honored to work with you and to show your quilts. So, I mean, let's just keep this partnership going. I love working with you, and getting to hang those quilts is truly an honor.
Now, if you would like, Liz, we would have to take a couple second break here till Joe and I walk to a different building, and because we're out above the garage right now, and walk in the house, and I can show you my, I got a new long arm. I should say new, first time long arm owner in December, and I have that set up in what was our old dining room, if you would like to see it.
I would love to see it, and with movie magic, we can make that happen.
Okay, here we go. We're going to walk through the garden it's actually our patio area, to get into what I want to show you next.
Perfect. What a beautiful day it is there, and a beautiful garden. I love seeing everyone's gardens.
I need to be very honest about this. This is all Joe. This is no Karen. This is just
Great work, Joe. It looks amazing. Have you had good weather there? Is it warm and nice?
Oh, it's beautiful.
Oh, I know that right now, I've been stuck in the house a lot, working from home, and I know a lot of people are too. But if you have the chance to get out and sit outside in the sun, it makes absolutely the biggest difference. So even though we're all a little bit trapped right now, it happened at a good time where we can enjoy the sunshine.
Honey, where's my puppy?
Do we have a puppy? Oh my gosh. I'm a big puppy lover myself. I have 2 in the other room.
So this was our, I want to say, fancy schmancy formal dining room. And when I decided I wanted to make the leap and purchase this long arm, a Nova long arm, Joe said, we don't use the dining room anyway, because honestly, Liz, we're just not formal people. And even though we had it, it never got used. And we said, why don't we turn it into a room that, I can use, that'll get used a lot. And so that was my purchase that I did in the fall, and just
got it in December. And Renee helped me set up, which was fantastic, and got me started on it. But so the room is kind of, I think, a little weird looking right now because, well, who has crystal chandeliers hanging in their long
Their long arm room, of course.
you know, remnants from the dining room. That's just the way it works. And then I have a little quilt up here on the wall. It's actually one of my hand applique class projects. And I walk down. And this quilt I just put on last night, so I haven't even started quilting. I just finished another little piece. I have two very good friends, Donna and Debbie Loman, and they do a lot of charity quilts. And they've been so kind because they've been giving me a whole bunch of their baby quilt tops that they do for charity so I can practice. And it makes it's like there's no pressure then because you think, you know, the baby's not going to be upset if your tension's not perfect or.
Exactly right.
But this top I actually made. I love going to the vendors when I'm at the shows, and I buy these beautiful fat quarter packets, and then I have the hardest time separating them. They look so good together. But I had a couple of packets that I put together and then put this quilt. So this will be the next one that I'm working on in the long arm.
Well, what a bright and happy quilt. Can I ask, so you're brand new to long arming, right?
Oh, yes.
What made you want to try it?
I will say the thing that most made me want to try it is every quilt show I kept going to over the past many years, I kept seeing that what the long armers were doing was so exciting to me. And I thought, can I do this? Like, I want to try. So I'm a new student to this. But Liz, I like learning. I like trying new things. It just makes me happy. I don't get frustrated. I just find that I like this new process where, I'm kind of learning things and trying something that I haven't done before, and let's see what comes out of it. And in the short time that I've been doing this, I've seen myself improve, which makes me really happy. And so I'm actually loving doing it.
Oh, that's a good thing to hear. Anybody who's out there at home thinking about trying something new, you can always try something new, no matter what you've done before, no matter what you're known for. It's time to pick up a new skill.
Right. And what do you have to lose? That's my attitude.
Exactly right.
You might be shocked because y'all end most of the time if you really wanted to do it. And then this piece is another, just to show you storage and also my wonderful husband. I said to Joe, I had collected, and I had purchased some of these rulers before the long arm because I could use some of these also at my Bernina machine with the proper foot. And these rulers tend to be thicker than, say, a ruler that you would use for rotary cutting. So there's a difference. So I started collecting a few of them, but using them just at my domestic Bernina sewing machine. And I said to Joe, I'm going to bring those rulers in here, but I need a place to store them. And if I just throw them in a big box, which I had done in the beginning, you're just digging around trying to find what you want. I don't like wasting time. I like to be able to grab what I need and go to the next step. And Joe said, do you know what would work really well is this is a drafting filing cabinet. And so they're really drawers, but they're not very deep, that I could store these rulers in. And I just put like a shelf liner in here so they don't slide around or move at all. This, when we priced them, was exceptionally expensive. And I said to Joe, well, I'm not doing that. I mean, I'm not spending that kind of money for storage. But he stumbled onto a used one that somebody was selling within driving distance of our house, and it was disgusting. They used it for landscaping papers, for a landscaping business where they were designing layouts for landscape. And it was full of dirt and it was just a mess. And Joe brought it home and sanded it and painted it for me. I just want to say this. Joe is a keeper.
I can certainly tell that he is. And I have to say, this is just an anecdote, but I have two of those in my house. My husband is a printmaker, and we also got them used because, like you said, they are literally thousands of dollars new. And it was like what you had with your drafting table. It was a company going out of business. We grabbed a couple for like for like $75. So if you're out there and you think that something might be beyond, what you're capable of getting, take a look at, what's going out of business.
I agree. Look for it used.
Absolutely. That's really good advice.
Behind me on the wall, I put up, this is another one of my hand applique class sample projects. And this I quilted before I had my long arm. So I just did, that was quilted on my home sewing machine. Then I have a table.
That. It's very recognizable as yours. It's a beautiful piece.
Oh, thank you. I'm in love. I love that piece. I really do. It's one of my favorite pieces. And then a table where I can sit, because one of the big things that when I kind of got into the long arming and I watched videos and I listened to what other long armers are doing, they're almost always suggesting that you sit down and sketch out what your plan is or different ideas on paper, so you can sort of get a feel for how it's going to work before you actually go onto the quilt. And I have to say, excellent idea. So thank you to all the people that have gone before and that are sharing their information with all of us. And another little quilt. These are kind of crazy to have in your long arm room too, but guess what? They were Margaret's. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to ever move them.
Oh, I'm sure. It causes, gives you a lot of comfort and inspiration to see that there and think about how she loved you.
It does. And then this quilt I made actually quite some time ago, and just decided it would be fun to hang up in a room. Again, something for me to look at while I'm working on a long arm machine. This was machine applique. It was also a class sample. I taught one of the blocks from here, like it was a 6-hour workshop.
I love that quilt. I've never seen that one before, but I love the colors. It reminds me of antique china.
Oh, I liked it. I say this, but there's just some quilts and they get stuck in a drawer for a long time, and then I pull them out and I'm going, wow, I'm happy to see that again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now these little pieces here, I did not do the applique. I was lucky enough over the years of doing all my traveling and teaching. I probably taught on 10 different quilting cruises. And one of the quilting cruises we took went to in and out of the Panama Canal. And when I was down in that area, and then, we make stops along the way, and I purchased these molas, which are local to the area, and they were not quilted. So they were just these pieces with no borders and, just kind of really rough, unfinished edges. But the applique work was incredible. And I'm telling you, they were like dollars. They were so inexpensive. And I knew how much work went into them. I had them on a shelf for, I would say, 8 to 10 years. And then when I was looking for pieces to play on the long arm, I remembered that I had these out on the shelf. So I bordered them, like these were 3 separate ones, and I kind of grouped them together because they kind of all fit nicely, and bordered them, and then I quilted them on the long arm as practice pieces. And then I just put them up here with, that kind of peel, and you can, I know what it's called, Joe, help me, where you can up and then pull it away so it doesn't damage the paint.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I could just enjoy them up on the wall for a while I'm in here working. But I think that might be the end of the tour. Anything?
Oh my goodness.
Me?
Absolutely. Well, thank you for showing us around. It's been such a treat to see the space that you work in and to see what you're working on and the different art and objects that inspire you. And so I want to ask you, for those of us at home who are maybe stuck at home or maybe looking for a project for the summer, what would you suggest? What kind of advice would you give to quilt makers around the world who are watching on how to get started on something new?
Well, I say if you're starting on something new, my opinion would be to start on something maybe a little bit smaller. Like me going to the long arm, doing baby quilt size pieces doesn't overwhelm me. Sure. And starting on maybe a little applique piece just to get your toes wet, I say. And there's so many good classes. I know AQS, online you have, is it the iQuilt?
You've got it, yeah, iQuilt classes.
To kind of help you get started. And really the main thing I will say too about when you're learning something new, just please know that there's no one answer to anything. And all of us who teach applique, for example, we all have different techniques that we use. We teach you what works for us because that's what we do. But it doesn't mean there aren't other ways and that you shouldn't experiment and try different processes. And then in the end, you'll just figure out what all is working for you. And there's so many online groups you can check in with and, you know, that kind of thing too.
I think that's great advice. And I've spoken to quite a few people who, you know, who have made incredible quilts and who are teaching across the country. And they give similar advice, which is that things don't have to be so rigid. You don't have to do it exactly like your neighbor's doing it. You don't have to do it exactly like the other people in your guild are doing it. You can try new things and put your own spin on them. So, you know, be creative, try something new. Don't be afraid to fail, because sometimes the things that go a little bit wrong are the most beautiful projects that when they turn out to be finished.
That's right. And it's not necessarily a fail. I say it's another opportunity. That's how I look. Like,
That's absolutely right.
you know, I don't know. I don't always think of it as a failure. I think it's like, okay, now that got me to that point. Now, how do I get to the next step? Maybe in a different way the next time I can try something, but you know, there's always a way to get, there's always a way
Right.
to get there.
That's
To
right.
figure it out.
As we say, there's
But,
quilt police. So, you know, don't be afraid. Everything's a new opportunity. Everything's an opportunity to
right.
learn and make something creative and beautiful. So I encourage all of you out there to work on something. And then when it's done, you have to enter it in our contests at quiltweek.com/contests. So maybe you too could get a really good collection of ribbons like we just got to see.
A long time for that collection.
That's right.
I would like to just say, Liz, how appreciative I am for AQS, for you doing this. But AQS has been such a strong supporter for all of us in the quilting world for such a long, long time. And I just need them to know it doesn't go unnoticed, how much we appreciate how they support us, how they promote quilting. It has been a really great relationship, I know, for me and a lot of quilters out there. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you for saying that, Karen. It means so much to hear that and to know that quilters around the world are feeling encouraged by what we do. You know, our mission has always been to support today's quilter. And so knowing that we're doing that means a lot. And I have to say, it is my dream job. I couldn't be working, you know, for a better company. I'm so happy to be able to do this and to talk with you and everyone else. You know, it's not every day that people get to have conversations with multiple award-winning quilters. So thank you for being here with us. And I have one more question for you. It's just
Okay.
kind of a fun thing, a little off topic. We've been asking a lot of people, you know, now's a little bit of a strange time. We have different things going on in our world where we're maybe stuck at home. And I've been doing a lot of baking. I've been playing some video games, which is new to me.
Mhm.
And I'm curious, have you tried anything new, a new hobby or anything during this time?
Hmm. Well, the thing that I probably have gotten into, but it wasn't just during this, it started a little bit before, was photography. But specifically, I am fascinated by putting a macro lens on the camera and getting really, really close-up photographs. I find I like to photograph flowers, but really intensely close-up parts of them.
Sure.
And Liz, you said, I like to photograph insects too.
I was just going to ask, do you photograph the insects? Well, how fun. That's really, you know, try something new if you're at home and you're wanting a new thing to try. But even the photos, that's a good starting point for a quilt.
It could be, yes. And the thing is, no matter, you know, we may not be able to go certain places, and I know there are places opening up now,
Sure.
but I can walk outside with my camera anytime. So there were no limitations on what I could do with that.
That's right. That's right. So, you know, I'm glad to hear that you're keeping busy, that you're doing something that makes life fun for you, that inspires you. And I hope everyone at home is doing the same. I
Me
want to
too.
thank you again for being here with us. It has been such a joy and such a treat to talk with you. I tell everyone I spend most of my time with my husband and 2 dogs. So getting to chat with you is just so much fun, and all of our other quilt stars. And I want to remind everyone, KarenKayBuckley.com. And then also, is that right? KarenKayBuckley.com?
Correct?
Okay, and then also we've got just a wealth of your products on shopaqs.com. And like I said, AQS members, you get 20% off of everything on there. And then once you buy it, you can go back to Karen's website to see your free tutorials, which you told me about. So I know that that is a great resource for folks out there. And remember, if you like the video, go down and click like and share with the buttons below so that your friends can see it. And be sure to like the American Quilter Society Facebook page so you can see these wonderful videos every Tuesday. So with that, I'm signing off from Quilt City, USA. Thank you, Karen. It's been such a pleasure.
Thanks, Liz.